Happy.
Lovely.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to Homes and Safe Communities, Wednesday the 2nd of April 2025. Before I start the meeting, I do need to go through some housekeeping. May I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they use the remote raise hand function? If a participant raises their hand via the remote function and is not subsequently invited to speak by the chair, please could they turn their camera on to indicate or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by the chair, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this is not possible for any reason, please bring this to the attention of the Chair and/or Democratic Services Officer as soon as possible. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and/or to grab the attention of the Chair or Democratic Services Officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let the Chair or Democratic Officer know. So, please could I welcome all committee and non-committee elected members, our officers, and also anyone watching the live meeting broadcast. Moving on to agenda item 1, we are looking for apologies for absence. We have received 2 so far. Councillor Lovelock Edwards and Councillor Morgan have both sent apologies. Are there any other apologies? I see no hands. I will move on to agenda item 2. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are members happy to approve? And can I have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Hennessy?
I'll propose the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Payne?
And I can second the minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any? Councillor Aviott?
Yes, I'd like to declare an interest in items 4 and items 5. As I have a council attendant, I have dispensation for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hennessy?
Same things, please, 4 and 5.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest? Again, I see no hands. I will move on to agenda item 4, which is a reference from Cabinet. It's the Q3 Revenue Monitoring 2024 to 25. Is it Gemma or Matt who's taking this today?
Apologies,
Gemma.
Chair. Me. Good evening. So this report sets out the positions for the end of December 2024, and the report kind of summarises the overall position, and then there are appendices 1 to 8. Probably in terms of the services relevant to this scrutiny committee, there aren't any kind of significant overspends or pressures to be made aware of. But if I just talk briefly about the overall council position, and then we'll focus in on the relevant service areas. So this report sets out an unplanned use of reserves of 12.7 million. And we're seeing some continuation of some of the pressures that we've been reporting throughout the year. So schools deficits, some pressures in school transport, demand for additional learning needs in schools and out of school tuition as well. There's also some growth in the pressure in children and young people services. Generally, there had been some improvement in the position across the council to Q3, and that in part reflects additional income and grant income that's been received in year, including a pay grant that has been allocated corporately into schools, as well as holding open some vacancies. However, the decision has been taken that some of that upside, so 2 million of that upside, which includes some surplus on council tax, would be set aside to offset the likely net deficit position on schools. So albeit we are seeing a general improvement, some of that has been set aside deliberately to mitigate the likely schools position at year end. In terms of the services relevant to this scrutiny committee, I was going to focus in particularly on the general fund housing position, which sets out a surplus in year. And some of that is due to additional Welsh Government grant that was allocated at the very end of 23-24 into early 24-25. And that means that housing intends to draw down less from the housing reserve in year. And there are also some surpluses within the service area because staff that have a base budget are being utilised against grant schemes. In terms of the savings relevant to this scrutiny committee, they're broadly on track. There is an amber saving, but that's being mitigated in year and will need to be kept under review going forward into 25-26. So those are the main points I was going to draw out on this report, but happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Gemma. Do we have any questions or comments? I see no hands, nobody indicating they wish to speak. In that case, then, the committee happy to note the reference? Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, happy to note, Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Aviott?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Gemma, are you doing item 5, the Cabinet reference, capital monitoring for the period 1st of April to 31st December 2024?
Yes, I am, Chair. Thank you. So again, on the capital monitoring, setting out the position to the end of December 2024, and there's some slippage included in this report. So the forecast outcome for the whole programme at year end is currently expected to be £80 million. The spend in this report to the end of December is 39 million, so quite a lot of spend to hit the programme by year end. That we have seen some larger kind of expenditure going through, including an acquisition that went through at the very end of the financial year. So whilst there might be some more slippage, we're hopeful we're going to make a really good outturn against that target budget. Appendix 1 details the final financial progress on the capital programme. And apologies, there are some issues with the wrapping on that appendix. So Chair, if you're happy, I'll circulate a revised appendix to members for their information following this committee.
Happy with that.
Thank you. In the report, I think the main things relevant to this scrutiny area are some reprofiling of the housing improvement programme. And that's detailed in a table just below paragraph 2.28. So there's £4.9 million that's being reprofiled there across a number of schemes. I suppose the most significant changes are across the WHQS schemes, energy efficiency and individual schemes. And there's also a environment of £150,000, and that's all going into the individual schemes line of the housing improvement programme, with reductions across a number of the other lines, including WHQS, energy efficiency and emergency works. I haven't got any other points to pick up on that report. There is the inclusion of some of the accounting adjustments we need to include in preparation for IFRS 16, which will be reflected in the 24-25 accounts, but they're largely of a technical nature. Happy to take any questions or comments on the capital monitoring report.
Thank you, Gemma. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Gemma. There's just one thing, and that was the Windsor Road retaining wall. Can I have a little bit more detail on that, please, Gemma?
Okay, Chair, are you is your query about the slippage on Windsor Road? Oh, sorry.
It's in the recommendations.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah, so
I think
it says retaining wall, Windsor Road.
Yeah, I think we've had to do more surveys and investigations than were originally intended. And this is from my general knowledge, so I can go away and get you a more detailed response. And that's caused some delay then in terms of when the schemes needs to be undertaken. And obviously, timing is important around undertaking that scheme as well. So that's my understanding. And they, when the last update was given, we were awaiting results from some ground investigation at the site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Gemma. That's the second wall question I've asked you.
I know.
The other one was Paddington School, wasn't it? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair. Though it's probably not technically under the remit of this committee, but it's in the recommendations, so I thought I would ask about it. I see the Oracle has raised its head again for an additional 15,000. I just wondered if we could have some more information on that, please.
Hi. So in terms of Oracle, this is not in relation directly to the main Oracle implementation. This is in respect of the archive system. So there were some additional reports that were required to make sure that we had all the information we needed for payroll reporting and to have the availability of pay slips, and that caused some additional costs to be incurred on the project.
Okay, thank you, Gemma. Obviously, it all goes back to the original contract, I suppose. But again, I'm not going to go too deep into it because it's not really this remit, the remit of this committee. But thank you anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Are committee happy to note this report? Councillor Hanks?
Yes, Chair, happy.
Thank you. Councillor Haynes?
Sorry, Chair. Yes, also happy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you very much for that, Gemma. It's always a pleasure to have you here. You are free, as always, to stick around or go and enjoy the rest of your evening. It is your choice. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 6. This is the report from Director of Environment and Housing. It's the Environment and Housing Directorate Plan 2025 to 26, including activities, performance measures, associated performance targets to deliver Vale 2030, the Council's Corporate Plan 2025 to 30. Miles, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll take you through this document. So firstly, the purpose of the report. So as you said, Chair, is to seek members' endorsement of the Environment and Housing Directorate Plan 2025-26. And this plan details the in-year priority activities for the Directorate, performance measures and associated performance targets for the Directorate. And it's all in line with the Corporate Plan Vale 2030, which was agreed by Council on the 10th of March. So essentially, there are now 5 directorate plans, and they're a key element of the building blocks of our performance management arrangements. And these replace a previous arrangement where we had 15 annual service plans. If you remember, they were put together by the heads of service, and the performance was considered by committees based on the details in those 15 plans. So if anything, it should make it easier for members to monitor the performance against the corporate plan, because there's less documents and there's less actions to consider. In addition, a new annual statement will also be developed for the council, and this will be informed by the council's annual self-assessment findings and these directorate plans. So the directorate plans, they detail the directorate level contribution to the wellbeing objectives in the corporate plan. So essentially, each of the directors has put a plan together. There's 50 actions within the corporate plan, and these 50 actions are picked up within the 5 directorate plans. So for this committee, the primary directorate plan is mine, the Environment and Housing Directorate Plan, and this is appended to the report at page 11. Also, access to the other 4 plans, Chair, is available via the link which is shown in the report, background papers at page 10 of the report. So a bit more detail, the directorate plans will be the key means by which performance for the Vale is monitored and measured, progressing the activities and associated performance targets detailed in our plans, and they will enable us to meet our wellbeing objectives and contribute to the national wellbeing goals. The plans have been subject to date to moderation by the Council's strategic leadership team, and we looked at them to ensure that they covered all the details within the corporate plan. Additionally, we sought to ensure that there was a relevant suite of performance indicators covering service outcomes from a citizen's perspective, and hope this will enable us to demonstrate progress and performance improvement throughout the year. The relevant cabinet members have also had oversight of the directorate plans prior to them being presented to Scrutiny Committee. In the case of this plan, there are actually 5 cabinet members involved with the work of the directorate. So if I just take you through the structure of the plans, Chair, just to explain how they're put together. So there's 5 sections within the plan. So the first section is who we are and what we do. So it provides an overview of the directorate and its broad functions. So as you can imagine, I guess, in environment and housing, there's a lot of functions. So that takes up a couple of pages of the document. The purpose of the plan then sets out how we will contribute towards the council's wellbeing objective. That's section 2. Managing our resources to deliver our priorities is section 3, and you'll see that there are the detail is in the directorate plans. It's taken directly from the budget report that was taken to council on March the 10th. Section 4, what we will do in 25-26. So essentially, that's a list of actions which reflects what's required of us via the corporate plan. And in section 5, how will we measure our success? So essentially, they used to be called performance indicators previously. They're now called performance measures. And there's a mix of measures in there showing how we improve the services we provide to our citizens. One thing members will note, this is much more of a strategic document than the previous service plans. I'll give an example. One of the key monitoring elements for this committee over the years has been the amount of time it takes to re-let a voids property. So you won't see that level of detail within the directorate plan. Excuse me. It doesn't mean we're not monitoring that still. You will see actions within the plan that talk about improving, reducing homelessness, for example. So that the work that we do behind the scenes, including things like turning void properties around more quickly, will help the strategic directorate plan actions. But I want to make it clear that it doesn't mean that we're not monitoring these things anymore. Back in our sections, we've got a load of other indicators and work we do in order to arrive at the strategic action that's shown in the plan. So the proposed actions within the plan will support the achievement of several of the commitments and outcomes aligned to our 5 wellbeing objectives in Vale 2030. If I could just highlight a few of those for committee to try and bring the plan together, to give it a bit of life, I guess. Page 18 of the directorate plan and CP6. CP is a number that each of the actions have been given, and they go up to 50. If you look at all the directorate plans, because there are 50 actions in the corporate plan. And that's to increase the supply of good quality, accessible and affordable housing. So this particular action relates to our actions in the housing business plan and details the numbers of units we have planned to build in 25-26. So high level stuff, but very relevant. As you can imagine, a lot of work in the background goes to building those houses, to getting the land and so forth. But in terms of the strategic plan, it essentially says we will build more houses in accordance with our business plan. That just gives you a feel of the level of the actions within the plan. Another one, page 20, shows 2 actions for the Directorate against the corporate plan, reference CP10, and that's to improve community safety with a specific focus on tackling antisocial behaviour, which has been something this committee has been considered with, and ensuring people feel safe at home and in their community. Now, one of the actions deals with the Community Safety Action Plan, which aims to tackle crime and the sources of crime, and the other aims to deal with our prevent duty. So this is preventing our residents, particularly those that are vulnerable, from becoming radicalised. So a couple of actions there that show how we're looking to achieve the objective, which is actually in the corporate plan. Another one, page 24 on CP21, to focus on families of children living in poverty and help them to increase their income, access food and housing, and escape poverty through wraparound support and advice services. This is very much a cross-cutting action across various directorates, including social services. And this action here relates to the most appropriate application of the Supporting People grant funding that we receive each year. And I wish to ensure that all projects provided give the best possible outcomes for the funding available. So these will be able to be updated, and members will be able to judge us on the performance against these actions as we go through the year. The proposed measures and targets within the service plan have been informed by an assessment of performance trend data, so performance against previous targets and external benchmarking data where this is available. And this is balanced against how much of a priority the indicator is to the council and whether there is a capacity to improve performance. So the measures are about measures of performance, and we're seeking to improve wherever we can. So performance targets have been set for existing performance indicators that are continuing into 25-26, but you will see where there's some new indicators, Chair, where it says set in baseline, and that's because we need to set a position in which then to improve from. That's the only reason for that, because they're new. If I could highlight just quickly a few of the measures, so page 31, which is CPM 077, percentage of supporting people service users who confirm that the support they have been receiving has assisted them to maintain their independence. A really important issue for us. We generally have a high performance in this area, but again, we're looking at a slight improvement because clearly it's important to us and to this committee. And page 32 and CPM 188, tenant satisfaction with the landlord services, again, an extremely important one to us. And here we're looking to improve from 76% to 78%. So we are looking to improve in all these areas, but the proposed targets have been set commensurate with the available level of resources. This isn't such a critical issue, I guess, in housing, but it's probably more of a critical issue in some of the areas that I look after in neighbourhood services and transport. So I'll conclude there, Chair. Just to reiterate, the purpose of this report is to give scrutiny members the opportunity to review and endorse the plan and everything in it. Any measures or changes or suggestions you've got will be taken back to Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee, then onwards to Cabinet following that. Cheers, Chair.
Thank you, Miles. Informative as always. Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Miles, for the report. A couple of points, if you don't mind me raising them. I do find it hard to align some of the efficiency savings with the WO 1 and 5, particularly in section 2, particularly removing of bins, closure of car parks. I just don't see how that makes environments better. That's just to name a couple of them. Or closing of community centres. That's certainly not making communities better. I think that's not an aligned. I understand these efficiency savings need to be made, but you can't close a community centre and say you're making a community better, and you can't take a bin away. There's 50% of bins away, I think, is on the latest plan. and align with your street cleaning on CP5. You're going to have to clean the streets more. I've noticed in my own ward there is more litter where the bins have been removed. So I just can't see how some parts of this align, and I really think some of these efficiency savings are going to end up costing the council more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If you're happy, I'll respond to those. Firstly, there's no suggestion to close any community centres. The suggestion is we will look at other ways of operating them. Currently, the council own the buildings and they're run by associations. So there is for example, Bellevue Community Centre in Penarth. There is a possibility that the community will run that building for us. They've submitted a community asset transfer application, and that will be considered shortly by council. So just to make that point, that we're very aware of the value of community centres to our communities, but there are other ways of running them. They could be operated by town and community councils, for example, or they could be operated by voluntary organisations. So just to make it clear, there's no suggestion that we're going to go out and close them. There's a wish to examine other ways of operating them, to keep them open and to ensure they service the community in an improved way rather than a lesser way. The other thing in terms of litter bins, none of the things that are listed, and I know it's not for this committee, but none of the things that are listed within the savings in the directorate plan are easy. One of the things I will say, though, even if we don't do some of the things as suggested, the bottom line for this directorate, the 2.4 million saving, is set within the budget. So I accept Councillor Haynes's point about removing litter bins, but we spend as a council almost £1.5 million a year picking up litter. And what we're talking about is maybe some efficiencies associated with that. So reducing duplication where there is duplication, stopping the placement of domestic waste in litter bins, which is a serious issue at the minute. People putting their household waste in bags in or around litter bins, and also increasing the amount of recycling we collect from litter bins. So taking any litter bin out is a big issue for the public, I guess. I mean, I understand that fully. But there are difficult choices to be made. And in my service area, £2.4 million is a hell of a lot of money. To give you an example, the whole park service costs £4 million. And that's maintaining over 100 parks and play areas. So a £2.4 million is a hell of a lot of money. So the decisions are challenging. But if members have other ideas, how we can get some of these savings, they will gladly hear them. So, I've been here quite a long time, as members will know. And the things I put forward are things that I put forward after considerable thought. And I genuinely believe we can actually survive with less litter bins if we manage our litter better. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put it forward. But I have to say, Councillor Haynes, I do accept that the actual challenges associated with this are difficult. I've not noted personally any increase in litter as a result of taking out litter bins. You do get a situation occasionally where people dump litter where the bin was. That tends to fade away over time. We will be enforcing those situations as well after a period of time. And also to say that the issue of litter bins is subject to review. So where they have been removed or we have introduced recycling bins in their place, we will undertake some review of the street cleaning arrangements around the areas as well. And we will be able to report that back to committee as regards the success of, or otherwise of that change. But thank you for the points, Councillor Haynes, but hopefully I've addressed them as best I can.
May I come back, Chair?
We do have somebody else waiting, so be quick.
It will be quick. One is, I must say, maybe I misread it, but it does say in here, I can't find it now, that it says closure of community centres. Maybe that's not the intention, but litter bins, I'd just like to say, I asked for where the bit of litter bins were going to be removed in my ward before it was removed, so I could just speak to the people in part. It never came. It came after the bin was removed, and a bin was removed, which shouldn't have been, instead of one that could have been. Perhaps we could talk later, another time, about the specific bins, but thank you.
Councillor Hanks.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wanting to ask you, Miles, about the camera car. Is this the new one, in addition to the one we've already got? And just wondered what sort of money these cars generate, please.
Yes, Chair, it is an additional camera car. And I wouldn't want to throw figures in the air because it depends on number of days it works and the areas it works in. And to remember that it's only actually issuing enforcement tickets to those that are infringing on existing parking regulations. So it would at least pay for itself. It will hopefully realise some surplus income that we can put back into highways, because that's where a lot of the money goes for highways enforcement. One of the primary reasons for the new camera car is improving the safety of children outside schools, because there's only certain restrictions that the camera car can do, and one of those is outside school. So it will raise additional money. It's due to arrive now within the next 4 weeks. But I would want to point out to members, it's about catching people who are infringing on parking regulations, in some cases often causing a safety situation, particularly outside schools.
Thanks, Miles. It really is. I think, it has improved in Lantwit. It goes through there, and I believe the parking on double yellow lines and just antisocial parking, it has helped a lot. Is the new vehicle electrical or not?
It is electric, Chair.
Okay.
The previous one is hybrid. So yes. So I mean, that's always our intention to. The previous car was bought some time ago, before electric cars were as available as they are now. And we've learned a lot from that particular vehicle. I think that the point I'd like to make about all of this and car parking enforcement, that sort of thing, it's about keeping traffic moving. It's about making sure that people who do infringe are dealt with, because often they're blocking accesses. I've mentioned schools. They're causing schools to be unsafe. So I guess the camera car is not a popular thing when people see it on the street, but it is a necessity to keep the towns and villages moving and to allow people to park properly. So, how much it's going to make, Councillor, I'll need to see how it operates and the success of the fines that it issued, but it would at least break even. But more importantly, it will improve the safety outside schools and in other areas of our towns.
Thank you, Miles.
Thank you, Councillor Hanks. Councillor Payne, would you like to come in?
Thank you. I think I'm in. Yeah, there we go. Hi, Miles. So I just wanted to look on CP7, which is around play opportunities, and tie it in really with the leisure contract in terms of, getting your friends together, going for a swim, doing those kind of things. The contractual thing limits, and it's about encouraging children and young people to get involved in activities. And swimming is one of the things for me that I noticed that it's about booking it. They don't have that opportunity just to go swimming that day. So you have to book the slots. So, those two tie in together. The CP7 is CP10 and 7, I think it is, on the directorate plan. So I wondered about, accommodating those kind of ad hoc activities that children and young people do. It's a bit of a concern, really, that there's no spontaneity in it at all. And, sometimes as children and young people, that's how we learn things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fair point. And whilst the free swim initiative being successful, it is a Welsh government funded initiative, and there's not maximum flexibility in it, I guess. So what we do have our own play team, and they are very active. Again, most of their activity is based on what they can achieve via grant funding. Yeah. So we will not stop trying to give our young people exercise opportunities and at low cost. That's a primary role for us. But unfortunately, we are very much reliant on grants we receive. Yeah. So whilst I think, we have a commercial company, as you know, running our leisure centres. They do some great work with things like health referrals, whatever. But they are a private company, and I guess there are drawbacks with that. But then the other thing I guess we can say is that all our leisure centres are still open and operating, and they have a really good throughput through the door. So finding that balance between making sure that people who maybe not got the funds to use that others have is challenging. All I can say to you, we will continue to try and do that using our own sports development team if necessary, but we are very much reliant on grant. I'm afraid.
Yeah, I know, I get it. I just wanted to make that point about, you know, when I think about my childhood going down the Vale or wherever, there's not that spontaneity involved lately. But the other thing was around housing, and you know, looking at what achievements have
Councillor Payne, you're frozen.
been made in terms of the olives, in terms of Colbert Road, in terms of Calyxton House, and all those things, you know, that, you know,
We seem to have lost Councillor Payne.
She is still connected to the meeting at the moment, Chair. I don't know if you want to try and bring her in again.
Councillor Payne? Councillor Payne, if you'd like to come back in. We see you.
yeah, I know, I don't know what happened there. So Miles, which bit did you get?
I heard you talking about some of our housing development, so I hope you're being positive.
Yeah, so I was saying one little criticism, you know, from a child's perspective, but the other thing was about, you know, the housing builds that you've done. So it was about commending the really, really good work that the council has done in where, as you know, in terms of Calyxton House, Colbert Road, the Olives, and I think there's some development in the Vale as well. So it was around looking at the achievements as well. We get a lot of negativity, you know, as councillors and as a council. It's so easy, you know, not to be in control and to look at the negative things around it. But there are a lot of achievements that this council has done in the last year and that are going to be in this plan. So, you know, it's well done from me, really. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair, if you don't mind, indulge me a little bit. I must thank my colleague who's on the call, Mike Ingram and his team. As a council, I think we should be extremely proud of what we've achieved in terms of new build over the last 10 years, which, funnily enough, coincides with Mike being in post, and the quality of what we've done. And though Mike won't say it, one of the big challenges for this year was to get out of the hotel international accommodation, because hotel accommodation is just not suitable, particularly for families. And you know, Mike has managed to do that, and he's built himself out of that situation by building new properties and by buying other properties and amending those properties. So I think, you know, I won't take any credit at all for that, but Mike and his team should, as should this committee and the council, for the you know, allowing the business plan to go forward as it has been, and we will continue. The only thing that slows us down, I guess, Chair, is land, is the ability of the availability of land. But other than that, you know, we're building some quality properties that anyone would be proud to live in. So thank you, Councillor. But if you don't mind, I'll deflect that to my colleague, Mike and his team, because they have done wonders on house building over the last 10 years or so.
Mike, I see you had your hand up. Were you wanting to come in on this?
Yeah, it was just to say that obviously what you can see in the directorate plan is over the next year or so. Clearly, we have ambitions to increase the supply of social housing. That is predicated in the funding set aside in the business plan. Just a couple of updates which aren't included in there, and I thought committee might be interested. Miles mentioned the hotel provisions. So the last 2 residents moved out of the Holiday Inn at Roos last week. The contract has ended, and currently all temporary accommodation, other than a small number of bed and breakfast units in Barry, all temporary accommodation is council owned or in the form of shared housing within communities in the Vale Glamorgan. And I think that's a really positive step. And new build obviously has contributed to that because it enables us to move people through the system. The second thing I just wanted to mention and to point out is obviously the Cardiff and Vale partnership will be the key driver really for this council, certainly for the next 10 years. Our ambition's clearly to build a further 500 homes over that period of time, and more if we can. Miles has alluded to the fact that land is in short supply, but on that point, whilst I'm happy for Miles to give the plaudits, clearly the housing development team really work their socks off in terms of delivering a quality product. The opportunity is there for any member to contact me or my colleagues should you wish to go and have a look at some of the new sites that will be coming online. A couple of them have been mentioned earlier this evening. And just one last mention really to colleagues in our planning department. Whilst we are providing social housing, council housing that has been mentioned today, clearly there is an element of housing, affordable housing delivered through Section 106 agreements and our housing association RSL partners, and that adds to the mix. And we've got a very sustainable programme of delivery going forward. But any member that knows of a plot of land going spare, I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor Aviat, you had your hand up earlier. Are you still wanting to speak?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring Councillor Haynes back in then.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a suggestion. In light of what Mike said, I assume that there must be a misprint or a misunderstanding. There's a suggestion is that the report is altered when it gets moved to corporate. On page 9, it says declare all community centres surplus for community asset transfer, consideration or closure. In light of what Mike has said, perhaps the word closure should be removed. Just a suggestion, Chair.
Miles?
Yes, Chair, it's not our intention to close them. I guess if you declare them surplus and there's no options for taking them forward as community centres, then that's one of the options you look at. But it's certainly not my intention to close any of them. As the council said, maybe this is a comment of this committee back to corporate resources and cabinet. But certainly, I would want them to be run by others, if not the association or us, for the benefit of the community.
Thank you, Miles. Any other questions or comments? I see no one else indicating they would like to speak. So in that case, we have had a suggestion that the report be amended as suggested by Councillor Haynes. Committee happy to endorse that? Councillor Hennessy?
I'm happy to endorse as long as the changes are made.
Okay, so that's what I was asking. Are we happy to endorse the change?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second that. So along with the change, sorry, apologies. So as long as the change is made, our committee happy to go ahead and send this to corporate performance, ready to go back to cabinet. I've heard Councillor Hennessy has already said as long as the change is made. Councillor Hennessy, are you still happy?
Oh, sorry, hit the wrong button. Yes.
Okay, Councillor Haynes?
I've got to learn to turn my camera on. Also, Chair, thank you.
Okay, no worries. So that concludes that item. Thank you very much, Miles and Mike. We will go on to the next item now.
Sorry, Chair, to interrupt. I'm very sorry. I just wanted to doubly clarify what our recommendation was going to be on that item. Are we happy to say that we are endorsing, but only on the proviso that we remove reference to closure of community centres? Or are we saying something
That was
slightly
my
different?
understanding.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So next item is the Youth Justice and Early Support Service. Hello, Kirsty.
Hi. Good evening, Nostwitha. Thank you ever so much for providing me with the opportunity to present to committee this evening. My name is Kirsty Davis. I'm Service Manager for the Vale Glamorgan Youth Justice and Early Support Service. And the report I'm providing some analysis for this evening is the performance of the Youth Justice and Early Support Service for the period of April 2024 to September 2024. This is the mid-year performance report. And this is to enable elected members to have effective oversight of the performance of the Youth Justice and Early Support Service. So if I can take you through the report. So the background in relation to the report, the Youth Justice and Early Support Service is required legally and under the terms of the Youth Justice Board to undertake performance reporting in relation to a number of key performance indicators. So there's a number of national indicators which we are measured against, and they pertain to the reduction in first-time entrants of children entering the system, reduction in reoffending, and reduction in the use of custody. In addition, we have a number of other local performance indicators which have been agreed by the Vale Glamorgan Youth Justice and Early Support Service Strategic Management Board. And these relate to reoffending by children in the youth justice system, reoffending by young people who have started a diversion intervention, and links to the number of victims participating in direct restorative justice. So in relation to the performance indicators, there have been changes and extension of the key performance indicators or new key performance indicators prescribed by the Youth Justice Board. And there's a number of additional areas in relation to those, which include links to serious violence, victims, substance misuse, there's a number of areas. However, this report will not contain information in relation to the new key performance indicators, and that's through no fault in relation to our service. There's national technical software issues between the software providers and the Youth Justice Board data systems, so we haven't had the published data, and that's not going to be available until later this year. But if I can just move you on, just to highlight the appendices to the report is the detail of the performance data, and also we've attached for your information at Appendix 2 the Youth Justice Plan in relation to 2024-2025. This plan was approved by the Youth Justice and Early Support Service Management Board on the 30th of July 2024. It's very lengthy, so I don't intend to draw your attention to the detail within that. We're prescribed to complete this annually and submit it to the Youth Justice Board, and there is funding linked to that. It's usually due for submission at the end of June. Sometimes they extend that to the end of July, and that. So we're currently starting to work in relation to the plan for 2025-26, but I'm highlighting that just as an additional, if you would like to have further detail in terms of some of the wider areas of the service provision. Okay, so we've included local performance measures because it gives us the opportunity to provide a much greater depth of understanding of performance in the specific areas. So we're available, provide comparisons with other areas across Wales in relation to the key areas. But I think something that I wanted to highlight from the beginning, which I will talk you through, is that within the Vale Glamorgan, we provide analysis in respect of a much wider range of performance measures than the national measures. And the reason we do that is that it enables us to provide information and analyse our performance for all children who are subject to an intervention. So that doesn't just relate to children who come to the service on a statutory basis. That's every intervention that we undertake, including preventative and diversionary. So that enables us to give a much more realistic indicator and picture of the actual effectiveness and the performance of the service locally. So nationally, we can identify that there has been a 1.3 decrease within the Vale figures within that criteria in relation to first-time entrants, and that's compared to the same period within the Vale Glamorgan last year. Now, this measure relates to the rate of children per 100,000. The actual numbers across England and Wales is reducing, which is very positive, and that's reflective of the significant reduction in statutory interventions for children across youth justice system. So in relation to this measure, if I draw your attention to the comparison of performance against other areas. So there has been a 17% decrease across South Wales in first-time entrants, a 10.7% decrease across Wales, and again, a decrease of 16% across the Youth Justice Service family. So the Youth Justice Board matches up with a number of different areas in terms of family arrangements, and there's broadly size, population, a number of local measures, and some of the examples that we are currently identified as linked with within the family are areas such as Monmouthshire and Torfaen, Gloucestershire, Dorset. So whilst in relation to the Vale's performance on this, that we've had a 1.3 decrease, I need to highlight that we have had sustained positive performance and very low numbers of children per 100,000 becoming first-time entrants in the Vale. So in terms of the numbers of children within that Vale, the overall percentage is that we have per 100,000 37% lower numbers than across South Wales, and 47% lower numbers in relation to the rate across Wales. So I think that I just wanted to highlight that on the face of it, our reduction of 1.3 is from a very low baseline in which we've made and maintained really significant progress, and that's a reflection of us maintaining that performance. Where there's been significant issues across Wales, which is a lot of work has been going on in order to try and obtain those decreases. Within the past 3 years, we've managed also to maintain roughly in terms of the numbers of children per 100,000, continue to maintain a downward trajectory. So we've maintained, not only been able to obtain low first-time entrance numbers for children, but also we've been able to maintain that. And this has been identified as an area of really positive practice with Youth Justice Board Cymru. So at their request, they've asked us to share learning with other youth justice services across Wales and provide analysis. We've done a lot of work with other areas in a workshop. We've demonstrated the measures that we have put in place within the Vale. And one of the key measures for that is the local reoffending tracker. And this is why consistently we've looked at all children who come to the attention of the service, and that's enabled us, along with local audits and multi-agency audits, to focus really on what has enabled us to what works with children. And it also enables us to do, because we look at not only where there may be instances of children who become first-time entrants, we also look at the number of children who haven't, and look at what works, try and ensure we're doing more of that, what works, as well as analysing the numbers that children who do become first-time entrants within the Vale. Something which I feel is key in relation to our success on this measure in terms of positive performance has been a real focus on the flexible intervention officer for out-of-court disposals and a very robust strength-based preventative offer. So we did have some additional funding from central government in relation to this area and to the turnaround programme, and that enabled us to recruit an additional post within the preventative service. That, unfortunately, that programme has finished now, and whilst we have had some intention from central government that there will be funding for this continuing, there's been confirmed a 40% decrease in this funding. But on a positive note, we have continued to work really hard in terms of seeking every opportunity to work with children on a preventative basis. There's been an increase in our referrals of 24% to our preventative service, and we have also observed an upturn in referrals for younger children aged between 8 and 11 years, which constitutes 16% of all of our referrals now received by the service. So we're working with children at the earliest possible points. We're very much linked in terms of working with other partners, education. We're doing work with primary schools. We're really trying to maximise any opportunity to highlight and pick up referrals for children at the earliest point. So if I move on now in relation to the reoffending figures for children in the Vale of Glamorgan, there's two different areas which we're required to provide performance data in respect of. So there's the binary rate, which is whether a child in the cohort has reoffended in the 12-month period. So again, at this point of reporting, in the Vale we were 33%. The South Wales figure was 39.6%, and the Wales reoffending figure was 38%. We also have to provide significant analysis of performance in relation to the number of reoffences and reoffenders, which is the number of not only the children who have committed further offences, but the number of offences they've committed. And we do this within a cohort which we track across a 12-month period. So we track children beyond the age range of widest involvement. So that may involve children who are also 18 years of age within that. So we have seen a decrease in relation to the number of reoffences compared to 4.45% across South Wales and 4.3% across Wales. Within our national annual cohort, there were 9 children within that cohort, and the data demonstrates that 3 of those children, 3 of the 9, had reoffended within that period, and they committed a total of 3 offences, which is a reoffending percentage of 33%, and that's 1% reoffences per child who committed an offence. However, more positively, in relation to local performance measures, there are 53 children in our live tracking cohort. As I've mentioned previously, these are children on any intervention who come to the attention of our service, including out-of-court disposals and pre-court work, as well as the statutory area and our preventative cases. So in relation to that figure, at the end of the 9-month tracking period, in relation to this cohort, out of 53 children, 8 had reoffended and committed a total of 14 offences. This amounts to 1.7% reoffences, and therefore the reoffending percentage overall on our local measures is 15%. And that's a really positive figure in relation to that. It's a real positive indicator of the impact of the services and the performance of my very skilled staff members and commitment to children in terms of the outcomes for children, victims and the wider community. And we continue to keep that as a key area for analysis. We look to ensure that we take every opportunity to try and undertake targeted prevention in terms of where there may be areas of need, but also in terms of ensuring that we are very proactive with other agencies so that we're able to obtain referrals at the earliest opportunity. So in relation to the indicator of custody, we have during this period 1 child sentenced to a custodial sentence. We've been very fortunate through our hard work in the Vale that we'd not previously had any children sentenced to custody for a period of 4 years prior to this. But in relation to this one child who was sentenced to custody, we had undertaken a significant amount of work over many years with that child. That child had committed a serious offence. Initially, we had been successful in obtaining a community sentence. However, unfortunately, due to a serious further offence, and they were in breach of the order, they were returned to court and then received the detention and training order. However, we provide really in-depth analysis of all children who receive any sentence at risk of custody to our management board. We undertook a review which really reflected the complex and traumatic background of children, of that child, and their involvement with services. And as a result of that action, the head of Children and Young People Services facilitated a wider learning event in which multi-agency partners from health, education, police, probation, children's services and young people services and ourselves were invited in relation to provide an analysis and really a learning event. And reflection was undertaken on a collective basis in terms of the early stages of involvement, prevention, partnership working, assessment of need, the child's voice, managing risk, decision-making, placement finding and stability, and the role of corporate parents, our role as corporate parents. Feedback from the event was really positive, and there was agreement that similar exercises would be beneficial for other young people in the future, so that good practice is shared, and most importantly, gaps in provision and learning can be addressed where possible if there are barriers, so we can try and ensure that we're providing the best possible outcomes to the work that we complete with children. So in relation to the measure of access to restorative justice, this data relates to the number of interventions that closed during the period of April to September 24. There were 61 interventions of the service. 46 identified victims and 44 victims were offered direct and indirect restorative justice. There was an attempt to contact the other two victims by phone and letter, but they did not respond or declined contact. We attempt to contact all victims through a number of different mechanisms, but it's worth noting that engagement in restorative justice is voluntary on the part of both the victim and the child and young person. There will always be, no matter how much we try and ensure that we're able to obtain victim engagement, that will obviously be down to whether the victim wishes to take up that offer. Finally, in relation to the Youth Justice Board grant funding, we received confirmation of the grant funding on the 8th of August last year, and that was then obtained in terms of following the submission of the Youth Justice Board plan, Youth Justice and Early Support Service annual plan, which I've previously mentioned, which was agreed at board. So in relation to some of the work that we've done more recently, in the area of climate change and nature implications, I wanted to draw your attention to some really positive practice, again relating to our Youth Justice and Early Support Service Reparation Officer. So he's really skilled, and I've presented information in relation to this previously, but he has a real passion about the environment and also in relation to engaging children, and we do a lot of work in that way in respect of environmental awareness issues. He links in with beach clean, reparation and graffiti removal. So I have included within the report some pictures of some of the recent work undertaken. So just some of the local projects that we've undertaken. So there was a project in the Penarth area, clearing unadopted lanes to assist the local community. We have had access to a vehicle by Visible Services, so we have really strong local connections. So we'll be contacted by Visible Services or also by councillors if there's any issues that we could potentially assist with. So we were contacted in relation to some of the issues of unadopted lanes, which were in a really bad condition in terms of lack of rubbish hadn't been maintained, and the difficulties which can be undertaken where that lane is not adopted. So we involved children in the reparation project. We cleared and recycled where possible 6 bags and bottles and cans. We then were followed by weeding, bush cutting and trimming. Another example, which is just outside the Vale, Glamorgan, but it's a project that we undertook in relation to the Pyle and Kenwick area. Now, that is an example of direct restorative justice, because one of the victims of an offence by a child who undertook this reparation, had directly requested that we look at providing some support and reparation in the in a football club within that area. The victim was on the committee there and identified some opportunities for that child to undertake some direct reparation. As you can see from the pictures, I provided that repainting, clearing up the areas because they had a championship match. So we've really been able to assist there. This project should be completed now. You may see from the pictures that it was in the process of being completed, but I think it's really important within that area to highlight that is direct reparation to the victim of an offence. It was a really positive opportunity for that child to be able to give something back to the community, give something back to the victim in relation to the understanding, learning and awareness of that offence, and really positive outcome all around that gives the opportunity for that child to be able to identify the wider impact of offences and their behaviours. So we've got lots of examples of work ongoing in relation to this, and they're just a few examples of some of the reparation and the engagement work that we undertake with children within the last period. So just really to bring to a conclusion, there's no, we work within budgets and finances, and there's no equality implications in relation to this report. And really, I would just invite councillors to note the contents of this report, but I'm happy to answer any questions or any queries at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Always a pleasure to hear your reports. You go into a lot of detail, and I'm so glad for the successes you have. I know how hard your team works, and they deserve our thanks. And yeah, keep up the good work. Proud of you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kirsty. Music to my ears that some of your people would like to come and help clear up, doing a bit of weeding and litter picking. Well, I approached probation services before, and they never ever got back to me. But this is exactly what the community want to see. And I'm never short of litter picking, you know. But I do take a lot of young children out. But you know, there's a lot of fly tipping as well. And I don't know if you'd be getting funding, but if we could do a project in my area, and I'd have to speak to Miles and Mike about this. Just collecting, just a one-off, collect all the fly tipping, put it in the places where the trucks could pick them up easily. But I would really like to speak to you about that another time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Avia. We're always open to that. I mean, what was really lovely in this occasion of the non-adopted road in the Penarth area, so Mark took a young person, they did a number of sessions, they came back the following week to continue that work, and there were some members of the street waiting for them, and they wanted to thank them personally, and that was lovely because they were saying, thank you so much, we really appreciate the work you've undertaken. That's been an area which has caused us real issues, and we're really grateful. And that young person had that really positive feedback and was able to get that praise and recognition for their role in it. So for me, that is really important, that communities get the opportunity to say that the children that we work with are also can be real active part of that community and can really be part of that community and feel proud that they're able to provide that contribution and that they get the recognition for it. That was a really nice moment, and I really appreciated them doing that, because that young person was really quite pleased because he could see then the impact of how that can really help people.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I see no hands. In that case, I would like to ask, are committee happy to note the report? Councillor Hanks. You're muted. Still can't hear you, Councillor Hanks. Are you happy to note? If so, yes. Not? Okay, thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Haynes.
I'll second it if you can hear me.
I can hear you. I thought that would be the best way to go about it if there were technical difficulties. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kirsty. As I say, it's always a pleasure to hear from you. And it's always good to hear of the successes you guys are having. Yes, you did have that one custodial sentence, but that was a little bit outside of your control, I think, you know, and it can be, and that is understandable. So please pass on my thanks and gratitude to your team. Be proud of them all. They're doing wonderful work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm very proud of my team.
Good. Okay, I think that is it. I have no meetings, no items that are urgent under part 1, no urgent items under part 2. And so I would just like to thank you all for attending tonight and to say that this meeting is now concluded and the next meeting is the Wednesday, the 14th of May. Thank you. Bye.